I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting for September 12th to order. If you would, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Ms. Tusing, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, sir, there are changes to the agenda. Item number 4, which is Plan Amendment 1902, Ordinance 1921 R Lives. It is a large-scale map and text amendment. There were revisions to the transportation portion of the staff report, and also the school report is attached to the update memo.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Schenk, anything from the County Attorney's Office?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, the first item on the agenda is the minutes for the August 8, 2019 meeting. Have we had an opportunity to review? If so, are there any corrections? If there are no corrections, Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the August 8th meeting.
Very good. I have a motion by Mr. Ron and a second by Mr. Roth. Any discussion? All right, Chair will call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. 7, right? Yep. All right, we'll go to the next item on the agenda. The next item is citizen comments. So this is an opportunity for anybody in the audience who has a desire to make a statement for something that is not on today's agenda. You would come forward now. If you have a statement you'd like to make about an application that's on our agenda, you'll have a time when that application's heard. But is there anybody who wishes to make a general comment? Okay, seeing no one come forward. All right, Ms. Tusing,
Yes.
I believe we have some new staff that you would like to introduce?
Yes, we do. Thank you. I'm not going to be present at the next.
What?
I'm sorry. Vacation. Okay.
Loud vacation?
I am.
All those in favor of denying her vacation?
Aye.
It's already been approved.
Don't tell us where you're going, because we'll find you.
Okay. But I want to take this opportunity. Akeya Brown will be doing a case at that hearing. She's recently been with us maybe about 4 or 5 months. And she's a native of Florida. She earned her bachelor's degree from Florida International University and her Master of Science in Urban and Regional Planning with an emphasis on developing areas from Florida State University. She's a Planner 1 with us in our Development Reviews department. She hopes to develop strong relationships within the Bradenton communities, both professionally and personally. And outside of work, Akeya enjoys travels with her family and friends. So we welcome her, and we very much appreciate her being here.
Welcome to the board. And I understand the agenda is rather full next meeting. Is that true?
That is correct.
You'll have to get back at Margaret at a later date. All right. So one of the announcements, or one of the things I'd like the board to be aware of, is that the meetings are being taped and they're now being automatically transcribed. Is that correct? For
Closed caption.
closed captioning. So just be aware that when you speak, if 2 people are speaking, it may get a little jumbled. So if you would, just be cognizant of that fact so we can have a clear record. If somebody's needs to use the closed captioning, they'll be able to see what is being said. So thank you. All right. That brings us to item number 3, which is our the first application on the agenda, and this is quasi-judicial. So if we could, who's reading this into the record?
I am.
Ms. Tusing, could you please read item number 3 into the record?
Okay. Item number 3 is PDC 1819ZG Sarah Bay. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. This is a rezone of approximately 4.37 acres located on the east side of US 41 and north of Whitfield Avenue. And it's located at 7045 North Tamiami Trail, Sarasota. It is a rezone from Plan Development Office, Whitfield Residential, Historical, and Archaeological Airport Impact Overlay Districts, and the residential single-family 3 dwelling units per acre Whitfield Residential, Historical, and Archaeological Airport Impact Overlay Districts. 2, the Planned Development Commercial Zoning District, retaining the overlay districts. It is also approving a general development plan for 66,625 square feet of commercial space, and a schedule of permitted and prohibited uses is voluntarily proffered by the applicant. The applicant's representatives are here, as well as Rosina Leiter for staff for presentation.
Very good. And being this is a quasi-judicial hearing, we need anybody who intends to speak on this matter to please rise and be sworn in, and that includes any citizens who may wish to make a comment.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you are about to present to the Planning Commission will be truthful and accurate?
Very good. Thank you. And again, this is quasi-judicial, so I would ask the board, have there been any ex parte communications?
No, sir.
Seeing none disclosed, we're going to go ahead and go with the applicant's presentation. So if you would, please come forward, state your name and that you have been sworn, and you'll have 15 minutes to present your project, your application.
Good morning. My name is Brian Smith. I am the principal in charge of Insight Incorporated. We're a land development consulting firm out of Fort Myers, Florida, and I will be presenting the application that you have before you. Also within the audience is Mr. Tom Doherty. He also is a representative of the owner. We will be representing DBM Marina LLC with this application, which is PLN 1808-0047, PDC 18-19. I want to quickly go through the property information for the subject property as previously introduced. It is located at 7045 North Tamiami Trail. The piece of property that's owned by the applicant, total site is 8.81 acres. However, this request is for the western 4.37 acres to be rezoned to PDC. The road surrounding the property, if you look at the aerial, on the north side is Magellan Drive. It's just a short little stub, about 56 feet, and then along the north side is Jungle Way. Mendez Drive is further to the east of the 8.81 acres, and it kind of terminates into the subject property. Montgomery Drive is to the south, and it's actually past one row of commercial development to the south, and then, of course, the property fronts right along US 41. Property is currently vacant. It was previously developed as a church facility, and it was demoed back in 2017. As you are aware, we just received a future land use approval for retail office residential, or ROR, back in June 2019, and that approval allowed us to go forward with this PDC commercial development application. There are 2 zoning categories on the subject property. Currently, it's PDO, Planned Development Office, which encompasses roughly 3.79 acres of development or area, and RSF3, which is residential single family, of 0.58 acres. And the request, of course, is to rezone the entire 4.37 acres to planned development commercial with a general development plan. The site, as also explained, it falls in multiple overlay districts. The airport impact, the historical and archaeological, the coastal evacuation area, the Whitfield residential, coastal high hazard area. It's located in the urban core, in the urban core services area, and it's designated urban corridor of Manatee County. As previously explained, if you look at the image to the right, you'll see that there are 2 different zoning categories on the subject property, and the application area is 4.37 acres, and it's demarcated with a red line splitting the property. Quickly going over the existing zoning and land uses surrounding the property. Excuse me. On the north side, there's 3 different zoning categories on the north, located on the north. It's PRS, which is professional, small, medium office, RDD 4.5, which is residential duplex, and RSF3, which is residential single family. The existing land uses are offices in the PRS category, which is professional medical, and then within the RDD 4.5 and RSF3 are single-family home sites. Further to the north of the the PRS site is a zoning of GC, and it has marina and boat uses. On the south side of the property, there's two different zoning categories, PRS and RDD 4.5, sorry. And those uses are offices and single-family residences. And further to the south of that, past Montgomery Drive, is GC, which is general commercial, and that has a hotel use on it. On the east side, which is on the subject property, is vacant, and it's RSF 3. On the west, across US 41, we have PDW and PDMU, which is Planned Development Waterfront and Planned Development Mixed Use. Sorry. Apologize. And then those are also developed as a marina and hotel use. The image on the right shows the area that to be considered for PDC. It's 4.37 with the remainder of the site of 4.27 to remain as RSF 3. The limitations, as you are aware, with the future land use approval was to change to ROR, and that was approved in June 2019 with D5 restrictions. The future land use acreage is 4.37 acres with a density of 5.5 units per acre, floor area ratio of 0.35, which allows a density of 24 units and a future floor area of 66,620. You said 625. I think it's 624. But however, if you note, the only residential uses permitted within the PDZ zoning district are nursing homes, recovery homes, and assisted living facilities. However, since this project lies completely within the coastal high hazard and the coastal evacuation, these uses are prohibited. And if the FAR is limited to 0.35, there is no adverse long or short-term impacts to transportation or roadway. I want to quickly go over the general development plan for you. The property is access only via US 41 through an existing access point. As you can see on the map, there is an existing access point that's there. We will have to go through an FDOT driveway connection permit. We've already had a pre-app, and what we will be doing is a upgrade to that driveway because we want to meet the FDOT standards for driveway connection. The site is limited to 66,624 square feet of commercial. The setbacks meet or exceed the LDC requirements. And so along US 41 is a 30-foot setback. We're proposing 30 foot. On Jungle Way in Magellan is 35 feet. We're proposing 35 feet. On the east side, which is also common ownership where the zoning demarcation line is a 15-foot setback. We're proposing 20 feet. And then on the south side, we are proposing 15 and required is 15. The building height is limited to 34 feet in height. The buildings, the property will provide 20% of required open space as required by the LDC. Utilities are available to the site, and we are required to connect to them. There's existing water and sewer. However, there is no reuse lines available to this piece of property, so any kind of irrigation would probably be from groundwater well. The landscape buffers that are proposed meet or exceed requirements. For example, the buffers on US 41 are 10 feet in wide. We're providing 15 feet. Along Jungle Way and Magellan, it's 10 feet. Width required, we're providing 15 feet, but we're also providing a 6 foot, in addition to the plantings requirements, we're providing a 6 foot opaque fence or a wall that helps separate the existing residential uses that are within the Whitfield community to our piece of property. There are pedestrian connections, required and already existing around the piece of property. Along US 41, there's a 5-foot sidewalk, and any kind of commercial development that will come in will be required to connect to that sidewalk. As also a condition of this rezoning, we have to provide a 5-foot sidewalk along Jungle Way, and we will be constructing that. And then, as you will hear from Rosina in their list of stipulations, we are in agreement with their stipulations. Want to quickly run through compatibility of this rezone application with you in terms of this piece of property. As conditioned within the future land use and the D5 restrictions that were put on the subject property, the density intensities has been limited due to the location of the site within the coastal high hazard zone and the coastal evacuation area. The adjacent properties directly to the north, to the south, and to the west across US 41 are all developed as commercial or office uses. The property is accessed via a 6-lane arterial roadway. The commercial uses will service nearby residences as well as pass-by traffic. Also important to note that during the process of meeting with the Whitfield Group as well as staff, that a access point will not be provided on Jungle Way. It's only via US 41 only. The roadway networks, utilities, et cetera, are all available and have the capacity to accept this piece of property. And if you remember back, way back in April, this piece of property, we were actually looking to rezone and do the future land use for the entire 8.81 acres, but throughout time, we actually worked with the Whitfield Group in terms of eliminating the eastern 4.27 acres of the property to the east and only having this application for the 4.37 to the west. And so what that did was that eliminated planned development zoning immediately adjacent to the existing residences on the kind of the north and east within the Whitfield community. And plus, there's adequate screening that was provided within the general development plan for setbacks and/or landscape buffers. I want to quickly run through the comprehensive plan consistencies. I know Rosina will do the same thing. Policy 2.1.2.7, appropriate timing. Of course, this project, the timing is appropriate given the development trends within the area and along US 41. Within this area, their character of development is a mix of commercial and office uses. Policy 2.2.1.17.1, intent. The proposed use is consistent with the newly, future land use of ROR. It provides a range of commercial, offices, and residential uses. Policy 2.2.1.17.2, range of potential uses. Per the schedule of uses that were proverb, that Rosina it's within your packet. The range is consistent for projects that are located within ROR, future land use. And policy 2.1.17.3, range of potential density intensity. As previously presented, the maximum allowed proposed floor area ratio for the site is 0.35 or 66,624 square feet. And that's according to policy 2.14.1.13, provision D513, ordinance 1912. It was approved by the Board of County Commissioners back in June of 2019. And then policy 2.6.1.1, compatibility. The range of land uses that are permitted within the PDC, and that's within your package in terms of what has been discussed for the schedule of uses, is comparable and compatible with the surrounding uses. Policy 2.6.5.4, preserve or protect open space. As previously presented, the general development plan will comply with the LDC and 20% of open space requirements. Wanted to kind of quickly go over the community meetings that we've held with the Whitfield Group. This project actually started back in April 25th of 2018. And as you're well aware, the original intent in the original application was to change a future land use for the entire 8.81 acres of property to ROR, and with the intent of changing the entire 8.81 acres to PDC, or Planned Development Commercial. Fast forward, meeting with the Board of County Commissioners, we reassessed with the Whitfield concerns, and that's where you have this application in front of you, where we met again on April 22nd of 2019, where we reduced the amount of property to be in the future land use of ROR as well as Planned Development Commercial to the 4.37 acres to the west of the property, not the 4.27 to the east. And we also had another meeting with we presented in front of the board, the Whitfield Board, on May 13th, 2019. So wanted to show that we've had a lot of meetings with them. We've had a lot, and that doesn't even count the correspondence that we've had via email and phone messages with them to take into the account their concerns for the piece of property. And with that, I thank you and be happy to answer any questions or concerns you may have on the property.
Very good, thank you. Just a quick question. Are there, I believe this is in the urban corridor. Are there any bonuses being sought through the urban corridor?
No, sir.
Okay, so, all right, thank you. Mr. Roth?
You're suggesting that it's 8.81 acres, was that the number?
No, sir. The entire piece of property that's owned by the applicant is 8.81 acres. However, this request is for the 4.37.
Is there more than one parcel involved here?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm looking at the county appraiser's site. It says there's 7.0695. Is there a discrepancy?
There could be a discrepancy. The survey that was done, the legal description, of the survey is for 8.81 acres. It could be because there's a little notch on the far southeast corner.
So you have a current survey?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Roth.
Can you tell us who the end user is?
I would have to leave that up to Mr. Tom Doherty. He's one of the representatives on the property. There's a potential end user in mind. Contracts haven't been, but there is a potential end user. But the schedule of uses allows for a full range of commercial uses because the contracts may not go through.
Question of the chair.
Yes, I have a follow-up question on that, but yes, sir.
So when this goes before the commissioners,
Yes, sir.
do they get to know who the end user is?
This is a straight rezone, so it's, the potential is gonna be the potential users will be consistent with the allowable zoning, but there were, uses that were proffered to be removed from the allowable zoning. And my question to you is, was that a result of your discussions with the neighbors? Is that how those came about?
Discussion with a neighbor and also neighbors as well as discussion with Rosina, what would be appropriate in this area.
So it's essentially a straight zoning modified to alleviate some of the concerns of the county and the neighbors.
Correct. The ordinance will have that list of schedule of uses.
And also for the board's, the commission's benefit, that's why we see a general development plan and not a specific plan, as that's not yet been finalized. Is that true?
That is correct. All the details will have to go forward for a preliminary site plan and final site plan approval. And that, at that point, you'll get the final building locations, parking will meet the requirements for the LDC for landscaping, parking, driveways, et cetera.
And with regard to the general development plan, I think one of the most impactful things that's represented here is the point of access being from 41 and not from any of the local streets. So,
Correct.
very good. All right, thank you. Any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go on to the staff presentation.
Good morning, Rosina Leider by the staff. I would like to clarify, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
This is a rezone with a general development plan. The applicant in their application expressed the interest in vehicle sales and displays. However, there is a schedule of uses included that give them the option to provide a different use at time of final site plan, preliminary site plan, final site plan. However, the application didn't include any specific approval. That means at the time of further review, the applicant have to comply with all the applicable regulations of the Land Development Code. Let me go, I'm gonna go faster to the items that the applicant already talked. The location and the site is with the urban core, urban service area, and with the urban corridor, as Mr. Cornely, you asked, the applicant is not taking advantage of any of the bonus of the urban corridors. And basically is because like you remember, the case was subject to future land use category change and was subject to restrictions that limit the floor area ratio and the number of dwelling units. The floor area ratio, because of the traffic, to reduce impacts on the roadways, and the density, because of the coastal high hazard that doesn't allow that you increase the density. As you see, the site that is under review today is the western portion of the parcel that is adjacent to the US 41. Sorry. As the applicant stated, there is the rezone of 4.37 acres from PDO and RSF3 to PDC, and include a general development plan for 66,625 square feet of commercial space, and include the schedule of uses. This is the future land use category, and as you see, the site is with the coastal high hazard, coastal planning area, coastal evacuation area, and that limits the potential development of the site. And this is the actual zoning. The PDO has been, and the PDO and RSF3 was imposed in the site with the Land Development Code in 1999 with the application of the Land Development Code. Also, the site is with the Whitfield residential and the historical and archaeological overlay and the airport overlay. And I would like to clarify that the Whitfield residential regulations are not applicable in this case to this particular general development plan, because all of them are related to residential uses, and no residential uses are proposed at this time. There is a stipulation that covers the historical and archaeological issues. If anything is discovered during construction, have to be follow up the regular procedure, and staff contact the airport authority, and there is an email on the back of the paperwork that says that the airport doesn't have any issues with the proposed height, that is 2 stories, so maximum 34 feet, plus the bay floor elevation that is 11.5 feet. This is the general development plan And over there is the restriction that the D5 imposed, that is the 24 units and 66,000 square feet of commercial office space. And here I mark the buffers, and to the north is a 15-feet buffer, and to the along the roadways that are proposing 15 feet, the required is 10 feet, and as the applicant says, along Jungle Bay, oops, sorry what I did. Sorry, I apologize. Along Jungle Bay to the north, they are proposing an additional fence to minimize any potential impacts to the residents to the north. To the south, the applicant is proposing 15 feet in the southeast corner, where is a little portion of a residential unit, and after that, 5 feet, that is the required, because it's adjacent to office uses at this part. The proposal comply with the minimum requirement of PDC for SIGBACs, and exceed the SIGBAC to the east. We're going to be adjacent to residential to 20, instead to propose 15 feet, they're proposing 20 feet. And the floor area ratio is established by the regulation of the D5. The maximum height, like I said, is 34 feet, and no medical facilities or assisted living facilities are allowed as part of the coastal high hazard restrictions. Here is that the site is with the FEMA 500-year floor plane, and the base floor elevation, like I said, is going to be 11.5 plus the 34 feet, and the airport authority doesn't have any problem with that. And staff review carefully the application, and we think that is a good fit for the area. The surrounding properties along US 41 has been developed with marinas, hotels, restaurants, and a variety of commercial and office uses. And there is existing roadways and services along the area. Could be potential impacts to the neighbors to the north. And staff consider that this is minimized for the location of the fence, and no access is proposed along the local streets. And staff recommend an approval with the stipulations. If you have any questions?
Anything for staff?
No, sir.
Just one question regarding the base flood. Mr. Gerstenberger, is it that the finished floor has to be at or above 11.5 or 1 foot above 11 and a half?
For the record, Thomas Gerstenberger, Public Works Department, have been sworn. Commissioner, Mr. Chair, with respect to this particular project, considering it is intended as retail commercial use, they do not necessarily need to meet the 1 foot requirement above base flood elevation, set at 11.5 feet. They could, provisions do allow through the floodplain ordinance for them to flood-proof any retail or commercial structures up to the base flood elevation.
Meaning it potentially could have a lower elevation with floodproofing? Is that?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
All right, just wanted to make sure that was understood. I think many times the floodplain issue comes up with residential, this not being a residential use, there was some allowances or potential allowances.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Very good.
Question.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
In the usage, could a car dealership go here?
Yes. It's one of the potential uses that is allowed with PDC.
Any additional questions for staff? For Rutledge?
Gas station approved?
Gas station could be, but I doubt it that another gas station gonna be close to the other two that is, but could be, however, it's not,
It's
at the
permitted.
end, it's permitted. However, to the east, there is a vacant lot part of this parcel, and there is, it's vacant and it's not any impact to the adjacent residential uses. The adjacent residential uses are far away to the side.
Very good. All right, so we're going to move on to the public comment portion of the hearing. I have no speaker cards, but I'd like to ask if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on this matter. If you would, please come forward. Anyone at all? Okay, seeing no one come forward, we're going to close the public comment portion of the hearing, and we're going to move on to, if there are no other questions from the commission, we're going to go to staff closing comments.
I don't have anything at this time unless you have any questions.
Very good, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Applicant rebuttal, and this will, again, if there's any questions, additional questions, we'll get those answered, but essentially, this will be the end of the opportunity for testimony. You're deferring to make a rebuttal? Very good, thank you. All right, we're going to close the public hearing, and what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. DeLesline.
I move to recommend approval of Manatee County zoning ordinance number PDC 1819 ZG, approval of the general development plan with stipulations A.1 through 8.9, B.1 through B.4, C.1 through C.3, and D.1 through D.6 as recommended by staff.
Very good, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Ron, second. Any discussion or deliberation? All right, hearing nothing, the chair is going to call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is a legislative matter, so this means the ex parte and being sworn in aren't applicable. So, Ms. Tusing, could you please read item number 4 into the record?
Yes, item number 4 is PA 1902, ordinance 1921, Our Lives. This is a large-scale map and text amendment. As you stated, this is a legislative item. Today's hearing is the transmittal of a privately initiated large-scale map and text amendment to the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan. It is to designate specific real property from the residential 3 dwelling units per acre, approximately 80 acres, and the residential 6 dwelling units per acre, again, approximately 80 acres, future land use classifications to the mixed-use future land use classification for a total of 160 acres. The property is generally located at the southeast quadrant of Ellington Gillette Road and 29th Street East in Palmetto. It is providing for a specific property development condition, which we call D5, in the text of the comprehensive plan, which will limit the location of the industrial uses within the property. Dorenda Marvin is here for the applicant, and I will be making the presentation for staff, so I will go down to the podium.
Very good, thank you.
Good
Morning.
morning. Jake, if I could have my PowerPoint, please. Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Dorenda Marvin. I'm a senior planner with Grimes Goebel, and I'm here this morning representing the landowner, which is Parish Land Investments, and I have with me representatives from Pearl Homes, Mr. Marshall Gabati and Mr. Ethan Tiger. They're here with me this morning. Also have Mr. Kyle Grimes, an associate in our firm. This project is known as Our Lives. And as Margaret said, this is a comprehensive plan amendment. It is both a map amendment to the future land use map and also has a related text amendment. That's what we often call the D5 language, and those are in our comp plan referred to as specific property development conditions. And because our comp plan is a very broad document, if we want to place any limitations at the comp plan stage, that's where we accomplish that. The current future land use for this property, it's 160 acres. Half of that property is in the Res 3 and half is in the Res 6. The request today is an amendment to the mixed use category. The property is located north of 301 and west of Interstate 75. It's actually at the quadrant of Ellington Gillette Road and 29th Street East. You know, this is an area that was really impacted by the construction of Interstate 75, and there are a few of us around who actually lived here when Interstate 75 was built and came through Ellington, and also the widening and the relocation of US 301. Much of this development pattern actually existed before those things happened. One of the things we look at in our comprehensive plan, when we adopted that in 1989, you really struggle when you look at an existing development pattern and vacant land. And there's a lot of analysis that goes into that to look at what would be that best approach for future development. When I was a young planner and came to this county in 1990, it was about 6 months after the comp plan had been adopted and we were adopting the land development code. And one of the things I had been taught was, you know, strip commercial is bad. We don't want to have commercial just along roadways. And when I looked at how we had mapped things and we had ROR along all these corridors, I said to my boss, Commissioner Betsy Benak, why are we doing this? I don't understand. This is not how we should be looking at future development pattern. And she explained to me sort of the realities of looking at existing development and property rights and how we have to recognize that to some extent. So I began to learn that what the county does is not necessarily tell people how they're going to develop their land, and they set forth those policies in the comp plan. They didn't necessarily map all of those lands exactly how they should be developed. That's really left to a landowner. So when we look at those periodic evaluations, those are generally privately initiated. You see map amendments. The county doesn't come in and sort of do a sweeping change to the map. Okay, so we are here today with a privately initiated amendment. The county has really not developed mixed use on large portions of the county. It has primarily been adjacent to the interstate or in large planned projects. And one of those reasons, I believe, is sort of the fear of the high intensity and the high density that the mixed use allows. As you can see, the maximum density with no bonus is 12 units to the acre. A density bonus for urban corridor or affordable housing could raise that to 30 or 40. The intensity that would be allowed is 1, and the intensity bonus could bring you to 2. Now, what that envisions in any of those cases is not a lot of open space, not a lot of surface parking, taller buildings, which we have just not seen in this county. And I took a look, actually spent some time last night. Ms. Danielle Ellis in my office was up very late looking at this. Looking at the areas that are categorized as mixed use and looking at how those have developed. And especially when you look at that FAR, you see how low those numbers are. And even though it allows a 1.0, again, that assumes structured parking. I don't believe we have any in the entire county, only in the city, although I'm working on one right now. Because surface parking to take care of all that square footage takes up a lot of your land. And so what I wanted to show you is the reality of the mixed use and those, what I would call reasonable and lower FARs. And the densities, when you get into those higher numbers, these are mixed-use projects. The only way we could calculate that was to sort of isolate a parcel and look at it. This requested amendment, as you know, the comprehensive plan allows for only certain ways that you can ask to amend the future land use map. It is a major policy decision by the board, and one of those is a change in circumstances. Directly to the east of our property, the property is outlined in red, you'll see that there was a recent amendment to expand the mixed use. This planning commission saw that, I believe, probably last fall. That is the property that is known as the Florida International Trade Port. It was brought to you as a rapid response project through our Economic Development Department. 800 jobs were proposed here. It was approved for 2 million square feet of industrial. At that time, we actually had an application in for a general development plan for a purely residential, low-density project. That really changed how we needed to look at our project. So we took a step back. We said, that project is going to be there. How are we going to respond to that? What should we do differently? And so we felt that a mixed-use designation, which would provide us with additional flexibility for this property, and so that on the eastern portion, we would control within our site what happened adjacent to that mixed use. So again, this is considered, in our opinion, a change of circumstances. The travel pattern in this portion of the county is greatly impacted by the river, by the interstate, and by 301. What's interesting, this is a clip from the thoroughfare map from the comprehensive plan. And you'll see that it shows 29th Street East, both east and west of the interstate. But that road doesn't actually connect across the interstate. So in this quadrant, south of 29th Street East, if you wanted to go to the commercial opportunities, you're driving south on Ellington Gillette, you're driving on 301 across under the interstate, or you're driving west into town, or up to Mendoza. So there is not readily accessible commercial development. The commercial that is down at 301 is really highway travel oriented. There is a truck stop. I think there might be a Waffle House, but I'm not positive. But, not necessarily things that that in the residential area you might want to use or need to use on a daily basis. And so one of the things that has happened here, one of the things we've created with low-density residential is we have forced that traffic onto 301 and onto 75, and we have forced it onto these thoroughfares with really local traffic, and that is not the purpose, thank you. That is not the purpose of the interstate, and that is not the purpose of 301. And so what we're proposing to do under the mixed use is to provide not only residential, but some neighborhood-oriented commercial to remove that congestion and some of that traffic from those roadways. So there's currently mixed-use designated lands on the east of the interstate. That is the Ellington Outlet Mall. That is a regional commercial, is what we would call that. People come from other areas for that. Directly to the west, we discussed the Florida International Trade Port, which is purely industrial. I will say there was, since the time we've made our application, you did approve just on the east side of the interstate a new apartment complex. But what the comprehensive plan requires, not suggests, not recommends, but it requires a diversity in the land uses developed in the MU areas. It doesn't say within a project, it says within that quadrant. And so in this particular area, I don't believe we have that diversity of land uses that we should be providing. Currently, under the Res 3 and the Res 6, anything that is not residential would have to meet commercial locational criteria. Now, that means we're a certain distance from the intersection of two classified roadways. In this instance, that would be Ellington Gillette and 29th Street East. If you look at the area that I have in the circle, that would be the approximate location where we could have up to 150,000 square feet of commercial, limited to neighborhood. But if you look at that, it's predominated by wetlands. And so our only opportunity on this property to develop non-residential would be at a location that no one would really desire it. And so that mixed use really gives us the opportunity to develop this site in a different way, bring those uses internal, and provide connectivity and walkability and all of the things that we desire in mixed use. One of the things that was raised to us in our initial conversations with staff, even before we brought in this application, was, okay, so now we have mixed use to the east of you that's predominantly industrial. How do we know that your mixed use won't become the same? And so we have offered, as we call it, those specific property development conditions, or D5 language, to say that only the eastern 1,000 feet of that property could contain industrial uses. So they are adjacent to the other industrial uses. We can provide that transition. We, as a single landowner, can provide for that through buffering and separation within our site. I will share with you, and I know it can be frustrating at times that we can't give you all that information, but we do have a general development plan that is under review that will be back to you as soon as it can. As you know, these are not permitted to be heard together. It will go a little bit faster than normal because we are working with your affordable housing department. We have signed an agreement with Ms. Jerry Lopez's office with an obligation on our part to provide affordable housing and on the county's part to help us move that through the system a little more quickly. So be happy to answer any more questions. I did want to say for Ms. Anderson, unfortunately, I just received your report this morning. I did have a chance to read it while I was sitting in the audience. During our project review, a question had been raised to us about connection to Blackburn. So there's an elementary school directly south of us. And I said, we would love to have connection to Blackburn. I don't know if the school board would allow that. You know, they're a little bit funny about protection. And so I was really glad to see that in Ms. Anderson's report, she asked for a meeting with us to talk about that. How can we provide that connectivity so that students and children or parents are not walking along Ellington Gillette Road to reach the school? So we'd be happy to do that, Ms. Anderson.
Great.
Thank you. Were those comments from the school board related to the comprehensive plan?
They
amendment?
were.
Okay, all right. Not the zoning application that would be heard in the
Correct.
future? Okay,
Correct.
very good. Any questions for the applicant?
I had just one. First of all, I'm excited to see that you've come back with a modified plan, because I know when we got submitted the modification under the secretive investment plan, I felt uncomfortable because I know the idea of the community up there was substantially different. So I'm very appreciative that what you've done is gone back, reanalyzed it, and come forward with a new idea, a new approach. And I think when you get that much industrial there, you're wise to follow the lead. And I think
the deals that the Benderson doesn't do, you probably can do. And I think that's just a great approach and a good solution to some seismic shifts that occurred, right or wrong. I mean, you can judge that yourself. But so I'm very supportive of this. I like that you've come back as opposed to battling out what the neighbors are doing, which I think also is good. And so I'm going to be very supportive of this, and I have pretty high confidence that the things you're asking for, the way you're approaching it, make all the sense in the world. I don't know if our code's permitted to do the best possible way, but I certainly would be in favor of what you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Mr. Rowland.
Very good. Also, just very briefly, what are some of the zonings that are allowed within the MU future land use?
Our application that is pending is for planned development mixed use.
Okay, all right. I wasn't going to make it specific to that application, since offered, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Amy Anderson, thank you. I'm so glad that you guys were able to get that report, and I know it's that comprehensive plan, so we just want to make sure that, you know that from the beginning, that we are interested in trying to make a connection. I'm really excited to hear that you're going to be doing some neighborhood commercial in this area, because a lot of them like to partner with our schools, so pizza shops and places for moms to hang out and dads to hang out, like coffee shops and things of that nature are always really nice. And one of the things we've been noticing is a lot of parents are driving their kids to schools. Even though this is adjacent to our school, like you said, you really don't want them walking on that roadway to get to school. So anything we can do, we do have a lot of new security things coming through the legislation, but we would like to work with you on creating a connection. So we can do that in the future. You said you're working on the GDP, and we just want to thank you.
Very good. Mr. Smock.
Yeah, I just would like to say, really kind of first question, I'm assuming that since they're talking about 800 jobs at that commercial development, you're hoping to create housing to kind of service potentially for those employees that might be working there. I mean, it only makes sense to be that close to potentially have that. But I do want to applaud you for this vision that you're putting together. It's it's nothing like that in the area, and I'm looking forward to that walk to work kind of mentality to finally start being embraced in this community.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smock, one of the things that we had to do when we sort of took this step back was we said if there are going to be 800 employees, they need a place to live. They might need a daycare for their child. They might need to go to a doctor's office during the workday. They need some place to go to lunch. And rather than put them back on 301 and back on 75 and congest our roadways, we'd like to provide that in that area.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anything additional for the applicant? Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to the staff presentation.
Okay, I think I'm just going to talk, not use a PowerPoint, because Ms. Marvin kind of covered all the bases. I just want to point out a few things that I need to do. Margaret Tusing, Building and Development Services, and I have been, I don't need to be sworn. Okay. Some of the items that we look at when we're reviewing for this is many of the things that Ms. Marvin stated. We try to look at how it's going to impact the existing development as well as the future. And so by achieving the differences and limiting where the industrial is going to be located, if that occurs on this site, to the eastern portion of the site, and then providing internally their buffer and screening, which is what the other project did as well to the residential. They have significant buffers and separations. So I think that will be important. And then, hopefully we'll have an 800 job employment-based opportunity for this development, and then do the mixed use. So we did look at the comprehensive plan amendment, and it is true, when you look at the existing MU within this area, it is primarily regional commercial and or the warehouse distribution facilities. We did have the opportunity recently, an applicant did come in to take over by the outlet mall and have some residential. So that will be our first residential within our mixed use. So this will be another opportunity to provide residential within the mixed use category, which is what we try to do so that we can reduce trips and the impact to the environment. The issue regarding how much commercial could be located within here, There is, our policy 21033 does limit the amount and type of the commercial that can be located. It could not exceed, it would have to be equal to or less than 300,000 square feet within this project. So it wouldn't be able to be more than that. So we believe that it meets all of the comprehensive plan policies as well as the Tampa Bay Regional Strategic Plan policies, and staff is recommending transmittal of this to the state.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for staff? All right,
No, sir.
very good, thank you. All right, we're gonna go ahead and open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to come forward and make a statement regarding this application? Anyone at all? Okay, seeing no one come forward, we're gonna close the public comment portion of the hearing, and we'll go to staff closing comments if there are any.
I have none.
Thank you very much. Applicant rebuttal or closing comments? Thank you. All right, with that being said, unless there are any additional questions for the applicant or staff, we're gonna close the public hearing. Anything? All right.
I just want to say that
Sure.
I'm excited about the affordable housing component. I think that's a very challenging item, and that you're taking that on and putting it where you are, which I think is a great residential area, but also argues the valuation for that. I think that's very commendable, and I'm hugely supportive. I hope it leads to a lot more.
Very good, thank you. All right, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing portion, and we'll open it up for discussion, deliberation, or the chair will consider a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. Based on the evidence presented, comments made at public hearing, the technical support documents, and find the request to be consistent with the Community Planning Act as codified in the applicable portions of Chapter 163, Part 2, Florida statutes, and the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan, I move to recommend transmittal of Plan Amendment PA 1902 as recommended by staff.
Thank you. We have a motion from Mr. Ron. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Delesline, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, the chair will call the matter to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. And I believe that concludes our agenda for the hearing today. Any other business? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and close the hearing. Thank you.
I'm leaving mine for tonight.
All right.
Nice work, Chair.
I'm in a movie like that. I'm in the video, so I gotta leave.